Ladies and gents, welcome back to another Enginears podcast. Today I'm fortunate enough to be joined by CEO and co founder of Rootly. Rootly is the only enterprise grade end to end incident management solution. So, covering on call scheduling to incident response orchestration and now agentic AI powered SRE. Trusted by hundreds of customers, including Figma, NVIDIA, Canva. I've got the joy of speaking to JJ today on what they've built, how they've gone about building Rootly and why, some of the anti patterns to maybe how they've gone about building the business. And, we're a day after a pretty big event in the AWS world. So, perfect timing to explore that a little bit more and exploring Rootly's product. JJ, you're a legend. Thanks for coming to join us.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be on the podcast.
Pleasure. Well, we always start with an intro into you, then a segue into product, business. So tell us a little bit about JJ and his background.
Yeah, totally. I was born here in Canada, then very quickly moved to, I don't know if you wanted all of that genesis, but very quickly moved back to China where I grew up. And, software engineering wasn't too much too big part of my life. I think I was just focusing on having as much fun as possible, and then realized that I didn't do so hot in school. Then I had to come back to Canada for university and compete here, and luckily did all right. And then found a job, and my first gig was at IBM, and I think that was a nice an easier segue into learning about this world of software engineering, how to be technical. And it turns out if you were quite sharp on the technical side, you can make a bit of money. So that seemed quite important. And soon after, I went over to Instacart, where I helped them build their 0 to 1 enterprise business. We grew that to over a quarter of their revenue effectively. And unfortunately, I had to spend about 60% of my time inside of incidents, which was not super fun. And incidents being, service outage events like the one that we experienced yesterday with AWS, depending on when this comes out. That would be towards the tail end of October, all the way into, I remember during COVID, there was a huge surge in demand on the platform, and everyone was trying to order toilet paper. I'm not sure why everyone was quite obsessed with toilet paper at the time, but we were sending shoppers going into the store and buying toilet paper, and they were coming back empty-handed. And so we were trying to figure out all these different ways that we'd mitigate this incident so we wouldn't have these empty shopping parts. We decided just to delete toilet paper off the catalog for 3 months. And so that was a version of an incident that I got to be part of, which was quite interesting to say the least. And one thing I realized throughout my journey at Instacart was there was a lack of better tooling. We were using some of the more legacy solutions out there for paging and on call at the time, and we felt there was something missing there. There was this collaboration layer that felt like was missing. And so myself and my co-founder, who I met there, he was the first site reliability engineer at Instacart. We decided to spend our Sundays working on this tool. This is all pre vibe coding platforms, like Riplet, V0, Lovable. I think if we had that, we would have done it in 30 minutes, but instead we took a couple weeks, which was fun. Great way to spend your Sunday, I would say. We deployed the internal tool out to the company. Everyone loved it. And we kind of realized from there that, maybe other people could take advantage of this as well. So we went out and we talked to a few other companies, and they all kind of told us the same thing. Oh, I would love a tool like this. And so that was a good segue into quitting, starting the business. So very serendipitous, I would say. I think if I had to go back and build a company again, I would do probably follow the exact same pattern, figure out what the business is trying to build internally, and figuring out what subset of that is actually a product that I can sell and the market needs, and going from there. I don't know if I'm the kind of founder that has these, innovative, aha moments in the middle of the night where I think, oh, that will definitely be a $1 billion company. I think I have to see and feel the problem, then go from there. And so after we quit Instacart to build the company, we ended up, yeah, building the first version of the platform. We were able to sell it to a few mid-market size businesses, the Webflow, the Riplets of the world. That were getting a lot of use out of it. Then very quickly we realized that this problem was agnostic to vertical, to size of company, and that we could really approach anyone. And so we decided to go up market pretty quick. And now we work with the likes of, as you were mentioning, Cisco, NVIDIA, LinkedIn, which I actually have their shirt on right now. I just realized as well, Dropbox, so on and so forth. And as it turns out, everyone in the world has incidents. It's one of those problems that we're very fortunate to solve because no matter how reliable things get, it will ultimately still happen. And so we have an endless supply of issues to solve. And it's also very cool being on the sharp end of a company's hardest hitting challenges, their most stressful times. And that's the thing that we tell our team as well is no one is opening Rootly because they're having a great day. They're excited, they're happy. They're maybe opening a platform like Ripple thinking they're going to go build the next $1 billion idea and quite happy about it. But when they're opening our platform, they're usually pretty angry and stressed, having a terrible day. And so I like to think we've seen all kinds of incidents by now. We have a lot of really unique customers we work with, everyone from 911 call centers to maximum security prisons, to your regular fast growing AI startups as well. So a little bit of a longer intro, but that's how we got here today.
No, amazing. What a journey. And for people listening now, with all the tools that we've got at our disposal, putting together a side project, did take weeks. It didn't take 30 minutes. So that was almost like, dare I say, real founder and finding a niche of what it was like a number of years ago. Break down the different parts to Rootly's product then. If I was to sign up on board, what would I find inside the product suite? I spoke about on-call scheduling. I spoke about now this AI-SRE. Help us understand suite of products.
Yeah, I think for us, our focus is really on building the entire reliability tool chain. I think largely what we've done up until very recently was focusing on the reactive parts of reliability. When an incident actually occurs, how do you respond to that very quickly? How do you resolve it very quickly? How do you consistently orchestrate your entire team? And there's a few bits to that. One is the on call side, as you're mentioning. So we compete a lot with companies like PagerDuty and OpsGenie, and we think of ourselves as the modern, more AI native version of that. And we've been wildly successful and their fastest growing competitor by far, that we're very excited about. The second piece to after we wake you up with our on call product, think of that as the smoke alarm. Tells you something smells funny. Now you're awake. Now you have to go fix it. We also provide the incident response bits. How do you actually coordinate and orchestrate the incident? How do you identify when things are related to one another, or whether I should bring Elliot into this incident or I should bring um, JJ into this incident in particular? How do I update my status page in a regular frequency? All of that good stuff. And we help you track all of the data, put it together in a meaningful timeline, help you write the postmortem, and really allow responders to focus on things that they're good at and let the machines focus on things that they're good at as well, which is record keeping, all of that good stuff. And then over time, what we realized was, hey, we did a really good job helping these companies consistently respond to incidents, get faster and faster, better at training. And it was really a problem of not just tooling, but influencing the culture and the process and the people bits. And then when ChatGPT came out, we started realizing that LLMs actually do a much better job at some complex debugging and root causing and investigation, especially covering vast amounts of data, looking at interdependencies that humans weren't as great at. If you think about in your company, what makes someone really good at incident response? It tends to be a person that hasn't been there for 2 weeks. It's someone that's been there for many, many years, that has a ton of tribal knowledge and understanding of the interdependencies of how your systems work. And we thought to ourselves, how do we extrapolate that knowledge, that skill set, and give it to everyone? And in fact, make it even better. And so what we ended up building was this AI SRE, this agentic real time troubleshooting, diagnostic, debugging tool where we connect to a whole bunch of your different observability systems. We look at your logs, traces, um, telemetry, your latest GitHub PRs, of course, combined with your Rootly data as well. And we try to figure out for a given alert that comes in, what is the probable root cause there. And we find that to be helpful. It doesn't necessarily, transparently, find the answer, 100% of the time, but it does provide and save responders a ton of time, helping you with that initial investigation, pointing you in the right direction. And the best part is, I think that this idea of a one shot figuring out the root cause is, of course, important. But what is actually more important to us is we actually get to figure out how you debug an incident, the things that you try, the things that you ask. And that context is very personal to a company. And we can take that, build it into this agentic SRE, and give it back to you. We can now power not only this product, but many other products. And so this tool over time actually starts feeling very tailored to Elliot, and maybe someone else picks it up and finds it less useful because of the time that passes and the training data that we have. And so that's kind of the future of the company, where we view ourselves as this platform for both proactive reliability, reactive reliability. We'll continue to do both. We don't see humans going away anytime soon, but we do view the role of you as a human changing quite a bit, which is you'll be managing a suite of agents to go and do the work for you, to go inside a Datadog, to go inside of, you know, an auto scaling tool and perform actions. And we view ourselves as the central hub of where that gets performed.
I've noticed that a lot recently. You spoke about language models entering the field. We've moved into a number of different companies building out an AR-SRE. We spoke about this offline. What do you think are the key elements that language models applying AI to this space specifically can really add value to the product of Rootly? Where do you think AI is really impacting Rootly?
I think a lot of the times for us, what's hard for our customers is they'll have someone on the team that just doesn't know necessarily what to do next, for example. And based on heuristics, and really that's the goal of using these language models for us, is we are trying to codify human intuition inside of an incident. And the more that we can do that, the more we can suggest to you what the right next step should be. You might feel stuck in a particular scenario, and we might actually know based on what your team has done, what the industry has done as a whole for this category of problems, or what other people are running into, what you should be trying to push to next. So you always feel like you're unblocked. I think that there's a lot of easy things platforms like us can do, which take less than a day to build. Like, yes, we can go summarize an incident for you or tell you when a piece of text inside of Slack should be an action item. To be honest, that's really easy. I wouldn't call that an agent or like, sophisticated engineering or feel really magical. It's helpful, but it's not magical. But the magical pieces are where it feels like you have a really senior manager or a senior IC teammate where you're stuck. We tell you what you should be doing next or suggesting what is probably best. That's where we see these large language models becoming really helpful. I think what it takes to build something really good there is actually quite difficult and takes a lot of um, you have to be very intentional with how you do it. I think there's a lot of easy things that companies can do. You could take a stack trace right now, throw it into Claude Code, and you can have a pretty cool demo you present on stage, and it looks like it does 90% of what our AI SRE promises to do. But I think the complexity and the sophistication of the nuances of an incident, because if you think about an incident, these are black swan events. These are something that you might have never seen before. Reasoning through that is actually really difficult, and applying the right heuristics at the right time is also really difficult. And you have so much data that doesn't even fit within a a reasonable context window as well is also quite difficult. So that's where we like to play, and I think I would always encourage people to look beyond the surface of, like, yeah, of course, I think Cursor can do a bunch of what we are trying to do right now, but the real depths of an incident actually get quite deeper.
I want to touch on the recent outage. I will. I'll come to that in the next couple of moments. But what stood out from our very first conversation is that you said, Elliot, we've been thinking about AI since we started Rootly. Probably looked slightly different to what it looks like today. And you've built Rootly in an anti pattern sort of way that you believe in and you truly double down on. Help dissect that, help dissect the anti patterns, and help us understand building the business in this AI native thought leadership way.
I think there's a couple of things that I can touch on quickly. I think when we started the company, ChatGPT didn't exist, which makes me feel like a boomer in building this in
Don't
building
say that.
software now, which is
He's
kind of
almost older than
interesting.
you are.
But when we realized that, the future of this company and the vision of the company is going to be this agentic first world, where we wanted to build this platform where humans and agents would come together to, effectively help you be more reliable. We knew a few things needed to be true. I think the first thing was we ourselves must be an AI native company in the way that we write code, in the way that we review code, in the way that we do anything. We have to think in this mindset. I don't know if I'm going as far as, Toby from Shopify and saying I'm not hiring anyone until they can prove to me why an agent can't do their job necessarily just yet. But we're certainly more towards that direction than ever before. A great example of this is, one of our customers, Clay. They provide this incredible tool, and we started realizing that this function of BDRs can be automated. We had, more than 10 BDRs at the time, and we hired a guy that was just as he was insane at using Claude Code, Clay, and all these other growth AI tools. And what we actually built was the equivalent of an AI SDR. We tuned it for 3 months, hyper personalized to us. This is effectively what products like 11x do, I'm sure. But we ended up building it ourselves, as any reasonable startup should have done. But anyways, story for a different day. And what we realized was the performance of our AI SDR was actually better than that of the BDRs we had. And so what we ended up doing was we transitioned our BDRs to different roles, and in some cases we actually parted ways with them, because we realized that by thinking this AI native mindset, we were flipping the way that we work on its head. And so we intensely hired these AI engineers very quickly. And their job was to find all the waste, all the automation that we could perform, and all the new ways of working inside of our company. On top of that, we went and we hired a massive cohort of interns from Waterloo as well, because these guys are born in an AI native world. They don't know coding any other way as well. And that injected new life and new thinking into the business. And so that's kind of the first category of, how do we build a successful AI company is we ourselves must be AI native. We must work in an AI native way. The lowest common denominator, I think, for most companies is, yeah, you use Copilot, use Cursor, sure. But I think you as leaders need to change the way how you think, how you report on it. And we track all of it. We report on who's using AI the most, and we track on who's not using it at all. Um, the second thing that we said was we didn't want to be, realistically, we're not going to be Anthropic, we're not going to be Mistral, we're not going to be OpenAI, some of which are our customers as well. We said, we weren't going to innovate like a lab did and just build these generalized language models. But what we do have an advantage on is we know the specific nuances of incident response, of reliability, of very novel events and information that no one has ever reported on necessarily. We ourselves are very well positioned to be a leading researcher in this particular space. So we hired a guy, actually one of our customers from LinkedIn, and he's had a successful company in the past. And we stood up something which we called our Rootly AI Labs. Super creative name, just by tacking AI Labs on the end of our company. Um, but we build a ton of open source projects. We built an on-call burnout detector that uses some of the latest research that's out there and technology that's out there. We put together the first SRE bench with Grok, for example. Our labs are funded by NVIDIA and Anthropics because they want to see us do that kind of research as well. And that's been a test that's been effective for us in a few ways. One, it's allowed us to always think on the bleeding edge. If you think about the product that we provide, NVIDIA, the product that we provide, Figma or Chick-fil-A and all these other companies, they want a super reliable tool. They don't want us running a bunch of AI experiments on there to maybe work and maybe not work. These are mission critical platforms. And so the labs has given us an ability to try a bunch of new things risk free effectively. And a lot of those great ideas and research and ways that we've innovated from a hard tech standpoint make its way into the product. The other thing that's been really helpful, and so we have a cohort of researchers that we pay that work full time on it. Some of our customers, some are leading researchers in the space. It's been a great talent funnel for us as well that actually join our AI team afterwards because we love the work that they're doing and they're excited about it. So that's kind of the second thing. So the first thing was we ourselves had to use AI. The second thing was we ourselves did not just want to adopt whatever the labs gave us. We wanted to advance in our particular space what was out there. And then the third thing was, okay, now let's go build this AI SRE product, this suite of agentic tools. And I think we as a business have a pretty big distinct advantage in the sense that if you think about what makes these application layer AI companies really powerful or unique is not because they have some great chat interface, is because they have some unique advantage. And there's really three or four out there. Either you're going to be innovating on models, we're not going to be a lab, compute, we're definitely not going to be NVIDIA. And the last thing you're kind of left with is data. And so we have a very unique data set that no one else has. If you think about the various, say there's a brand new AI SRE startup that doesn't have the tooling and the tool set that we have, they are fully reliant on taking one shot, trying to figure out the root cause of incident, just staring at some telemetry. But that only gets you so far. You don't know the things that the conversations Elliot's had in the past, the postmortems he's written, things that he tries and doesn't try. That unique data, that human intuition that we're talking about, doesn't get captured. And thus, you don't resolve incidents and fix them and proactively anticipate them in the way that your company does. And so that data part is very important to us. And I think, this like anti pattern thing that we think about is, we don't think about our on-call tool as this paging product or this instant response tool as this collaboration product. We think of them as data vessels for AI-SRE. We need that data. We want the first party data because that's the most important thing for us now. I know that was a super long answer, but
No, that was a phenomenal answer. The first one is incredible. Incredible, scary. It is the times of how we can actually build and replicate a product that's already live and existing in the market at the moment. AI SDR, and you've got and built that within a few months. That's definitely something, attached to open source projects that I want to put in the description so that people can come back to and look at some of what you've built already. I love that. And I think the labs part is a phenomenal idea for you to be able to continue building partnerships, collecting data with some of the relationships that you already have, but also innovate, which is also what I wanted to come back to as well. What is it truly like to work with some of these businesses? And NVIDIA, Clay I know well, LinkedIn obviously I know well. What is it like to really partner with them and support them on incident management through to SRE?
yeah, that's a great question. I think the interesting observation I've had is big and small companies all face relatively similar problems, similar classes of problems. And when we think as a team, when we build products, especially now in this AI first world, I think it's very easy to get lost in the sauce. It's very easy to go do the shiny AI things. I'm sure you've seen all of our marketing is very AI forward. We have this labs thing that was created. I think the thing that I remind our team and our leadership as well is let's not forget what is going to be most important for these customers. What are the things that are not going to change? What are the fundamentals that we cannot forget that we need to build our foundations off of? Things that are not going to change. People will not want to resolve, people will continue wanting to resolve incidents more consistently, faster. And so sometimes there's this temptation to build the next flashy AI feature, but may not be all that useful. And so striking that balance becomes really crucial. And I think our customers, even our AI native customers, um, are incredibly intelligent and force us to strike that balance all the time. You would think a very, a model's, frontier lab would tell you just to do everything AI first, but that's actually not true. They want to do everything AI first, but they want really rock solid foundations through your product because you provide a mission critical service. They understand the realities of where the technology is today, what it can do and what it can't do. And I think that's why we've seen inherent success and failures in categories like AI SDR and other places as well. So we get to be in this lucky position where we are able to control this knob of how much AI gets put out into the world for our customers. We have customers, government agencies, banks that tell us, don't touch that knob or we're canceling the contract. That's fine. We don't try to debate them on that. Um, we have customers that say, hey, turn the knob to 10%. I just want you to help me summarize what's going on inside of an incident. Some customers tell us, hey, turn that knob to 45%. And from there, we tell them when incidents look related and how they were solved in the past. And some customers say, turn that knob to 110%. And we are putting up PRs for them. without them even reviewing it in some cases. And so by and I think that's the advice I would give to anyone that's listening that's building AI product that is trying to serve SMBs, trying to serve enterprises, is people AI is so new still. People are so in very different parts of their journey and maturity levels as a company. Giving them the optionality to determine how much AI they want to use will serve you very well. It's served us very well. Even as we work with our own technology partners, um, I'll take Slack for example. When AI was first coming out to Slack, there was a lot of questions around what kind of data should third parties like us be able to see and control, and the opportunity that we had because of our popularity on the platform and the products that we were building. We actually helped to define with them the data privacy guidelines and what it looks like. Um, and I think all of that together puts us in a really interesting position, how we work with the variety of customers and how they push us to be better in ways and push us to change and not to change all at the same time.
There's this real humbleness, pragmatic nature, humility about you, listening to you, spending best part of a couple of hours with you, talking about Rootly, talking about why you started the company. And it would be easy to, follow the path of building something in AI and focusing on fancy features that your customers don't want. I think everything that I hear, excuse the pun, is rooted in what your customers want from, or building something that is pragmatic, that makes sense, i.e., your Rootly AI lab or your AI SDR. These are things that are providing value, or what you just spoke about, providing the right value for your customers. There's a real sense of that, listening to you, spending time with you, and I get that vibe.
I really appreciate that.
It's, it's no problems at all. We've got to talk about this outage. So, treat me like I'm a dummy. Outage yesterday, for context, it's 21st of October. I look at the news, world's on fire, everyone's posting about it on LinkedIn. I don't have that frontline context. I don't work inside of Rootly to really understand the ramifications here. I can imagine some of them, but demystify that and then double down on how important it is for someone like Rootly to step in.
Yeah, for context, so yesterday there was probably the largest AWS outage that's ever been experienced in the history of the service. AWS being probably the most popular cloud provider out there, and they have a region called US East 1, which is the most popular region by far for any service. So I think a lot of companies and vendors are evaluating if they run in US East 1 and they have a critical service that also runs in US East 1, is that suddenly the right decision? What is the deal with having a single point of failure? But I think what we saw was how brittle the internet as a whole is. And I think it also continues to highlight the importance of reliability. I think there's a lot of flashy things that are being built. There's ChatGPT out there. There's all these cool software products, and at the end of the day, the most common denominator is how reliable you actually are. And I think we saw that everything from your email service down to, I went to the Blue Jays baseball game yesterday and we couldn't even scan our tickets because of a Ticketmaster issue, which was kind of interesting, to my wife calling me and asking me, should she just unplug the lights and plug them back in because it was all hooked up to her Alexa. That it had this huge cascading effect on literally everyone's lives, whether or not you were involved in software or not. Sometimes there's a Slack outage and it's very specific to IT and information workers. I feel like a boomer calling them IT workers. But yeah, and I think what people realize in the interesting position that we were in is, well, we really had to function when everything else wasn't functioning. It's the day that we probably see the highest demand in the history of our business, and again, what I was saying earlier, these are the worst days that people are having. I imagine for any given customer, it's not just one small issue that one team is working on, it's the whole company is now working on the incident and the reliability and how they're communicating with their customers. Every single customer of ours is all hands on deck fighting fires, and we are working in overdrive behind the scenes to provide a tool that they can depend on, that they can rely on during a crisis moment. And I think coming out of it, now that the dust has settled, 24 hours later, people are asking themselves, how do we continue investing deeply in reliability? Obviously, it's a tragic and very devastating event for everyone, but it's also probably our Black Friday to a certain extent. There's more people that didn't have a cohesive and mature incident response process are being pushed to because they want to, because their leadership team wants it now. And so it's also the highest demand day for new business for us as well. And so these are very interesting events. They happen only a couple times a year. I remember, earlier in June, there was a big GCP outage, and AWS outage as well that took down pretty much, again, the whole internet, the Cloudflare ones, the Slack ones. Um, all of these have pretty large effects. I think CrowdStrike was probably the most notable one that I can remember for a very long time. Um, but yeah,
Insane. And I can only help but think unbelievable data sources for Rootly, like all that learning that you're going to get from a day like yesterday on your customers. How do you support your customers better? Probably your platform, probably your culture, your mobilization. I'm sure customers are going to learn more about themselves. Days like yesterday is data.
totally. It's data, it's highlighting the importance, and it's also a lot of learning for us as well. I think, one observation that we had was almost every AWS service was impacted. Some recovered quicker, some didn't, and there was actually workarounds that people were finding. Some people couldn't access their console to do the right auto scaling behavior, for example, and some people found ways around that to trigger it, or people couldn't post their status on their status page, but people found ways around that as well. And I think the interesting learning for us is when given issues that more n+1 people would run into, some people figure it out really quick. Some people get stuck forever. Some people figure it out very slowly. How can we as a platform aid that in the future? It's like you're in a classroom, you're taking a test, the smartest kid has figured it out, and how can they share their answers with everyone else? So there's a lot there that we are thinking about right now. I would say that's quite interesting, and yesterday was a very good um, an interesting situation that very much so put that in the spotlight and highlighted it. But I think it also taught us that I think people, when they see an event like this, are also very empathetic to each other, which is great to see. Usually, when it's a single service or a single company, people point fingers, they're easy to blame. But when it's everyone going through the same pain and the same hurt, people are very empathetic into the issues, and they realize that, hey, software is designed to fail. Failures do happen, incidents are inevitable, And I think customers, ones with enterprise SLA contracts to consumer products that you use, are excited to see that the companies that they depend on are learning from it. And the ones that are putting out messages and postmortems and RCAs and how they're learning from it are the ones that are going to build the most trust, even if they were down all of yesterday.
Yeah, 100%. Where are you thinking about taking the business in the next 3 to 6 months for what you can share? That can be the Rootly core product, could be the research lab, but it'd be good to get a bit of insight into your brain and what you're thinking about bringing to Rootly.
I think the way that we think about in any given point in time what the next year or 2 years looks like us will be if our product was frozen in time right now and we had to go build something new and or evolve what we currently have, what is the competing product that would render what we currently have today useless effectively, or the thing that we build in 2 years from now so good that everything that we have now we're giving away for free. That's the way that we like to think about it, and I think AI has opened the door to endless possibilities. And I think what's different about this time around is it's real. I think there's a lot of previous ML ops, AI ops that kind of soiled the industry, that were just doing these deterministic rule based things. But I think AI has opened the door up and made people cautiously optimistic about how they adopt things. There will be a new category of software for a problem that doesn't exist today that we are currently building for. I'll give you an example in a different space. If you think about, SEO has been around for 20, 30 years, or however long the internet has existed or search engines have existed. Then this category of, hey, people suddenly don't try to find their information on Google. They go to ChatGPT. They search what is the best product. And now AI SEO has become really important. And there's been probably 50 different companies built up specifically to serve this need over the last 6 months. And for us in software and people that are not only resolving incidents but want to build a reliable company, there's probably 10 categories of this so-called AI SEO that exists out there or will exist out there very soon. And we are getting ahead of how we build products to serve those needs in particular. So when the time comes, we're ready to capitalize on top of it. But the thing I think that's different now about how we build software as a company is you have to anticipate more than ever. There are things that you may not even know exist. How do you make sure your platform is going to be flexible enough to do those things, and your opinions are not too rigid, and you're always listening, and you're always learning. And so I think more than ever, we as a team are ready to reinvent ourselves on a given moment's notice. Who knows? Maybe on call is totally irrelevant in 5 years. I don't know.
You hit a nail on the head, two nails on the head. I've seen the AI SEO category. I've seen quite a lot of data on LinkedIn around Google search to ChatGPT search and how we've moved from one source to another. Makes a ton of sense. But I really like what you touched on. It comes back to the pragmatism part. If we wanted to go and build something today that would solve a need right now, what would it be? I think that is such a good place to start. It's harder in practice because I've spoken about this on the podcast. You have that emotional attachment to the business and the products that you've already built, and not necessarily saying you would do this, but you said incident management might become redundant in 5 years, and not having that emotion to the problem and solving the need of today is really powerful. In
I
practice,
think
a bit different, but it's really powerful.
I think that's what's ultimately made the business, as successful as it is even today. In a different version, if I think about the landscape of incident management tools, a lot of them are predicated on you know Google SRE best practices and codifying that into the product and following these certain golden principles that must happen. Yes, I believe in a lot of it. I think a lot of it is true and great, but I don't think it applies to everyone necessarily. I think it was more important for us to build a product from the ground up, ignoring everything that existed out there, just by listening to our customers, consistently finding all of the common denominators that we needed in order to serve them as a business. And I think now, fast forward to today, we have the best ease of adoption. We're best positioned to serve all kinds of different sizes of companies. And I think my advice to other founders, not that anyone's asking for it at all, is if you think about everything you've done so far until now, the success that you've had, regardless of how good it is, you should always think of that as a head start into something else. And that something else could be completely different. That something else could be just a slight iteration of what you have. And that something else could be completely the same as well. But I would always encourage people to think about what they've currently built as a head start. And that way, you are forced to be in this beginner's mindset. You are forced to anticipate the future, and you're forced to not be stagnant and go listen to your customers and what they care about and what they don't care about necessarily as well. And I think it's easy to be a victim of your own success. I feel that all the time. My time is spent with our highest paying customers and prospects all the time. Why would I ever try to think about the 2 or 3 year arc of the business when things are going so great? We are signing the largest company in the world, the hottest companies in the world. How much better can it possibly get in many ways? And I think that is very dangerous to think like that, because by the time you realize you might need to do something else or do something better, someone that's been thinking like the previous way will come along and just demolish you.
There's a lot of wisdom and pragmatism rooted in you, sir. That's for sure. I'm going to throw in another saying: you don't start from zero, you start from experience. So I think there's a lot in that too. You've been a legend. 1,000,000%. I want to catch up with you in 12 months' time, see where Rootly are, see where the successes are. But I think on behalf of everyone at Enginears, a massive thank you for coming to join us, talking to us about the Rootly journey, the phenomenal job that you, co-founder, the team have done to build such a great platform. So a massive thank you, JJ.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I really enjoyed this.
So did I. And for everyone listening, there's links attached to some of Rootly's projects, the open source projects that JJ referenced. All your likes, shares, subscribership, all of that good stuff keeps this little ecosystem going around. So keep doing it to see more videos like this. And again, a massive thanks. JJ, bye for now.
Thank you so much. See you guys.
Hey guys, thanks for watching this episode. Massively appreciate you listening and checking in with us. If you want to find out more about us and what we're doing, please check us out on social media. What we're trying to do at Enginears is build a community to drive knowledge sharing and experiences. On Twitter, we can be found Enginears.io. It's no_. We've also got a website which is enginears.io. These links will all be posted in the description. Any feedback and comments are massively appreciated. We're always looking to improve on where we can. Thanks, guys.